Good evening everyone, welcome to the Planning and Highways Committee meeting today, 16th of November. Just some housekeeping rules. Hopefully there won't be a fire or fire drill, but if the bell does go off, please leave the building the way you came in, down the stairs. If that way is blocked, you can access the steps outside just behind you. And but be careful because the steps can be slippery, and assemble in the car park. Under no circumstances use the lift, but the lift lobby is a safe area. Can I remind everybody to turn off their mobiles or put them on silent, please? Item 1, apologies for absence.
There's an apology from Councillor Goodman, and Councillor Weymouth is substituting for him.
Thank you. Item 2, disclosure of interest. To deal with any disclosure by members of any disclosable pecuniary interests and interests other than pecuniary interests is defined under the Seaport Town Council Code of Conduct and Localism Act 2011 in relation to matters on the agenda. Councillor Bond?
Yeah, just again to ask the fire chair to see if there are any details of any council.
Councillor Hummel?
Item 0837, I don't know one of the neighbours, so I won't take part in the debate. I'll vote on that.
And I'd like to, on LW stroke 17 stroke 0896, 26 Highland House, I know one of the neighbours. And also that I'm a member of the East District.
Um, 0914 26 Fairways Road. I know the applicant. I won't be participating.
Thank you.
Sorry, chair.
Councillor Bond?
Oh, wait, still no.
Belgrave Road.
No, Barron's Close.
Oh, Barron's Close.
I think.
Thank you.
To check if anybody else is down there.
Yes.
It's just that we've got
Yes,
no
the
CCTV.
CCTVs. I'm just going to look up and make sure there's nobody else. If you don't mind waiting for a minute. Thank you.
Item 3, public participation. In accordance with Standing Order 3 and the Seaport Town Council policy, members of the public will be entitled to speak on general issues concerning this committee or non-planning application matters at this point. People wishing to speak on planning applications may do so immediately before each planning application. Any members of the public like to speak now on non-planning application matters?
Yes, please. Not.
Is there anybody here who wants to speak on the New Hayden Harbour development? No? Okay. Because otherwise you need to speak now, rather than when we come to that agenda item. Okay. Item 4. Planning applications, weekend in the 20th of October. LW stroke 17 stroke 0553 8 Belgrave Road. Any
Yes.
members of the public like to speak on this application?
Yes, please.
Okay. Can I have your name and address, please?
Yes, my name is Miss Fox, 4 Belgrave Road. I'm afraid I didn't receive a letter about the planning application at all. So I have phoned through and I have written a letter about my concerns. I've written one to here and I'm on to this as well. And I spoke to Jeff Johnson, I think it was this morning. Thank you. first I heard of it was on Tuesday when I saw a notice on a telegraph pole in the house. So I put a note through my neighbour's letterbox telling her about it, and she kindly did a copy of her letter that she'd had through my letterbox. I consider myself to be a reasonable person with compassion for most situations, but this does not seem at all an honest or fair. What is happening already down the driveway. A business is taking place from a residential home, and a large workshop and shed will enable more restoration and selling of motorbikes from home, and it's on the deeds that a business shouldn't be held in a residential unit. Also, to what cost will this be? Because the driveway has already been compromised and damaged. The noise levels are bad the best of times down there when the motorbikes are used, and when materials are used and things that are made for the gentleman's business. Flammable materials and waste are already in garages 8 and 10. Also the damage of the driveway as materials taken down and dumped on the driveway already have caused holes there. If this driveway was to be used by the gentleman as access to the side of his property to do the building work, it would affect the driveway even more. How do they intend to drain the area? How do they wish to gain access to the area if it does go ahead? Because it's not their driveway, it's mine. They have access to the garages, limited access to the garages at the back only, and that says it on the deeds. Setting up a business, as I said before, at home is not allowed on the premises, and that's in the deeds as well. Already making things, repairing things, etc. for the handyman business that he has. Sometimes there's a lot of grinding noise and, you know, considerable noise at the back, apart from the motorbike speeding up and down. Extra visitors will presumably be there to leave materials and also to access the motorbikes that he is already doing up and selling on the premises. The driveway is made for small vehicles, not heavy loads. Who will repair the driveway when it gets really bad? I mean, I've done my best myself with one side of the driveway, the areas that people go up and down already. There's already a large hole that has appeared since he had some stuff delivered in August, and I did ask if he would fill in the hole, and he hasn't. It says on the deeds that flammable materials must not be stored in the garages at the back, and there are lots of flammable materials stored in the back, oil and petrol and paint and all sorts of things. Also, what concerns me is the noise and the speed that the driveway is used when the motorbikes are tested up and down the driveway. It's supposed to be a residential area, and it isn't anymore really. Mr. Silver already has a car and a scooter, and they have 11 bikes in the garages. The fence that he has at the side of the garages has collapsed, so he's piled up lots of building materials against it, which is affecting the driveway too, and has cracked the driveway. Gas bottles are often left there as well, cracking down the driveway again, and also making it difficult for my neighbour to reverse her caravan into the area, and anyone else wanting to turn the vehicle around there, it's obstructing that area, making it difficult for access. His van is also full of heavy tools and the weight is not good for the area. I'm saying that it's the oil and the spillage and the petrol and the paint and the gas bottles and everything. It's pollution and dangerous. It's an environmental impact in that area. Property isn't covered, as it says so in the deeds. It's not covered for dangerous materials like that to be left lying around, or in the garages at the back there. Because now he's renting one garage, because the gentleman in the end property, number 10, is working away, so he rents it to Mr. De Silva. When I first came, it had not been maintained, the driveway, so I did my utmost and got rid of all the weeds and paid somebody to repair the cracks of the driveway. And I was told by him and his wife and another next door neighbour, why are you bothering, because they've just come back again. And I said, well, we need to look after the driveway. I don't use it myself, I haven't got a car or a vehicle.
I think we'll have to, sorry, but bring you to a close now.
Yeah,
But
okay.
If there's anything more important, but I think you've covered most
Okay.
things.
Thank
which
you.
The
Thank you.
committee have done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll just also mention we've had a letter of objection from Miss Fox's neighbour at number 6 Belgrave Road, making the same points
Okay, thanks.
generally about noise and disturbance, and also the fact that the workshop building will be 4 metres high, raises concerns about its intended use for commercial purposes, and most of the other issues which have already been covered by Ms Cox. That's from Margaret Coggins, the owner of 6 Belgrave Road.
Chair, just quickly, another peculiarly interesting fact. Sorry, I won't vote.
Any other members of the public like to comment on this application? Okay, it's now open to the committee. Councillor
Can we
Freeman.
just clarify that? Is it in fact a shared driveway between 2 houses, or I'm not entirely sure on this driveway.
The driveway goes to the, it does go between 4 and 6, it goes on the other side of number 4,
Yeah,
and accesses about 4 or 5 garages at the rear. The garages lay at the rear of numbers 4 and 6,
right.
but adjacent to the rear garden of number 8, which is a longer garden. So the workshop would be an extension, if you like, of the garages, because both numbers 4 and 6, the gardens stop short of the garages, whereas number 8, it runs alongside the garages.
Yeah.
Just a point of order, Chair. Councillor Freeman, you might not realise that you actually do know who this person is as well.
Who?
It's from the people at the Christmas lunch last year. They're the people that put them in.
Yeah, I only went there as mayor though.
I thought that's ongoing comments. Just okay, fair enough.
Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, could I just clarify something else? The business, the issue of it being run as a business, is that actually a material planning consideration that we should be thinking about, or something that we can't comment on?
I think in this case, it's such a large building, and with the points that you heard from the objectors, I think it definitely is evidence there to, if you are concerned about it, there is enough evidence to base concerns on that this will enable the garages and the workshop to be used for a commercial business, which would be what you might think was inappropriate given the nature of the area, the character of the area, and the nature of the driveway. But there's obviously some evidence already, and the workshop is quite a large workshop, and is not really a domestic workshop. It's more, it looks like a commercial. It's certainly large enough to be a commercial workshop.
But the applicant hasn't actually said that.
No, the
He's
applicant hasn't said anything at
just
all.
called it a workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Councillor Freeman. 2 points. One, I would like to just clarify the issue with regard to the drive. Am I right in thinking that the driveway actually belongs to Mrs Fox?
Yes.
And there's just a right of access, a right of way?
Yes.
Therefore, the maintenance of the drive is down to number 4?
Yes,
number
but
4.
they're supposed to help with the tail end of the driveway. That was my
Okay, but
understanding.
it's basically your drive?
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
And the other point is that there is obviously an environmental health issue, potential environmental health issue here, which I don't think is a planning issue, but nonetheless I think the applicant and the neighbours should be encouraged to write or contact Lewes District Council and the relevant department and speak to quite urgently actually, speak to the people there with regard to the existing, let alone the future use of the garage. Because there seems to be a health and safety issue there, needs to be addressed. And I know from other situations in Seaford, Lewes District Council do go out and visit these sites, so it's probably worth doing that. But I would object to the proposal on the basis of the information given. It's really a question of finding an appropriate objection, and I guess that's overdevelopment if we can't consider the business activity directly. But we could mention that as planning officer suggests.
Yes, I mean, if you're concerned about overdevelopment, you say overdevelopment, not in character with the area, and it gives the potential for a commercial use to be established there, especially with the concerns that have already been expressed by the two objectors.
Yeah, so we could actually bring in change of use would be required if they wish to develop
Oh, yeah.
in that way. So maybe that would be the phrase to use.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Anybody else like to comment on this application? So,
Just
Councillor Allen.
just seems inappropriate all round, I'd say, the word that springs to mind.
Yes.
And just echo what Alan said.
Thank you. So can I have a show of hands objecting on the grounds of overdevelopment, which it gives the potential to commercial use?
One, two, three. That's unanimous.
Yes, yeah.
Councillor Vaughan has declared an interest. Thank you.
Just one point, can I ask councillors not to speak to the members of the public after? Yeah, just okay, just do it through me. Next application is LW/17/0733, 19 May Avenue. And I believe this one has already been passed by Lewes District Council, so if you just want to note it.
Council manager.
LW/17/0814 2 Salisbury Road. Any members of the public like to comment on this application? So, who wants to go first?
Ladies first? Or do you want to start there first?
Do I need to actually go through because have you all got letters of my objection? Do I have to actually read through it then?
Who are?
Sorry, I'm Matthew Noel, 5 Chichester Road. I live directly backing on to Salisbury Road.
Well, I've got the letter. If you hadn't been here, I would have sort of gone through the letter.
Right, so you want me to
explained
go?
members.
So you want me to go through it? Yeah, okay, that's fine. Right, I'm objecting on the grounds that it's overlooking and loss of privacy. The proposed plan means that the dwelling will be just 6.3 metres from the back of my property, from the boundary height, and the soffit level on the plans is 10 metres above ground level, because the property is on 2 floors at the ground slopes away. It also has on the plans a double aspect Juliet balcony on both sides overlooking my garden. And it does mean that the accommodation just will mean that I have loss of privacy. The in fact, the distance from my property to the back of the proposed new dwelling is nearly as far as from the front of the property to Salisbury Road, to 2 Salisbury Road. Also, it means that my garden will be overshadowed, and I've calculated, because the sun goes down between 2 Salisbury Road and the end of Claremont Road, so it means that probably from May till July, I'll lose 2 hours of sunshine at the back of the garden because of the building. I'm also concerned that on the plans that the soffit height is 10 metres, but it doesn't account on the plans the pitched roof, which, calculating according to the plans, is another 3 metres high. So that gives the overall property 13 metres in terms of its height from ground level. Also, the visual amenity, the proposed dwelling is not in keeping with the surrounding area, and building such a dwelling in the garden of the above property would alter the character of the area, where all properties from front to the road in Salisbury Road, Claremont Road and Chichester Road. Layout and density of building. The proposed dwelling being in the rear garden of the property could open the floodgates for similar applications with other properties in Salisbury Road, especially if they all have large gardens and some have access from the lane which runs between Salisbury Road and Chichester Road. So it would open the possibility that people could sell their gardens, and then if you accept one, how are you going to stop? How are you going to stop the rest of it? And in conclusion, I'd like to add that the following my objection. I understand the proposed ground floor extension to the property has already been refused. I think is that the case? Am I right in saying that? I think I may be wrong in saying that, but I think that in the original plans that one was refused.
We haven't had it come up in the last year.
Do you not? No, maybe I'm wrong on that one. Also, I did notice on the plans that the proposal for sewage, that there's an existing manhole within the rear garden from the main house. As far as I was aware, that the sewage ran from the main properties into Salisbury Road. How does a manhole cover get into the middle of the property? Anybody? No? Mm. And also, just one last thing, which wasn't on my original, but I've obviously done some research as well, because we also had a problem in 2005 with the development of 36 to 38 Claremont Road, the old Claremont Hotel. And part of the amendment of the plans was that the back of the property, which now has a flat roof, was going to go up 2 stories. There were a huge amount of objections from obviously neighbours both sides, myself, and obviously up Claremont Road. But that application, which is LW 05116, which was applied for on June the 7th, 2005, was actually withdrawn. So, because again, the objections were that the property was going to go so high, it was just going to be overlooking and overshadowing gardens. So, on that basis, I'd like you to vote not to accept it.
Thank you. Have you also put your objections to those district?
Oh yes.
Because they will have the expertise on, like you say, with the
Yes. Yes.
rates
I haven't
and that
put
sort of
I
thing.
haven't put that part of it, but I will, because that was the other thing I just wanted to say, was that there were on the letters that we had for the application, there were 2 dates. One was the 17th of September, which is November, which is the one I got,
Yeah.
and you got 24th of November. So I'm not quite sure when the actual closing date is on that.
Because after we get the applications, all the other services with their comments come in after us. So it would be a good point to, point that one out.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. It's a pleasure being here, and thank you for allowing me to speak on this. I'd just like to start
Can we
off.
have your name and...
I'm so sorry. My name is Carol Turley, and I live at 4 Salisbury Road, and I'm the other half of 2 Salisbury Road, so it's a semi-detached, my house is semi-detached, the other part is 2 Salisbury Road. I first noticed that something was going on in the garden a few weeks ago, because I didn't receive a letter. There was no notice on any posts, either in your area or my area, and on questioning several neighbours, only some of them received the letters. And as you said, the date on my letter for to write an objection is the 24th, so there is confusion over that. So some people may be waiting. You can see a copy of my letter as evidence if you want.
That's all right.
Okay. So I have submitted this in writing to you and also to Lewis Planning Office. And I definitely want to make strong objections to this because it will have a serious impact on our standing of living and enjoyment of our property and land. My specific objections are, first of all, overlooking, overshadowing and loss of privacy. So my house is, the 2 houses are here, and the gardens run, the houses face that way and the gardens run that way. So I overlook there. It's on a slope, and the dwelling with its glass fronted, a 3-sided glass porch will just look straight up into my living rooms and bedrooms. As well as on the other side, look down into this gentleman's. It actually takes up nearly the full width of the land, his garden, bar, I think he can't walk around that side, but he's left a path to walk around this side. And he's going to build, put a 10-foot fence up as well. So the sun, as you rightly said, rises there and sets there. So I've got a 10-foot fence, and then I've got possibly a 13-metre house that will overshadow my garden. And at the moment I enjoy a lot of privacy there. There's a sunken area, so you really get the last of the sun. I grow my vegetables there. And I have a studio, an artist studio, little room for painting. And that will affect all of that. At the back of my house, I have a conservatory and a little patio. It's ancient, it's about 30 years old. And they will also directly look into that. So that's my argument on overlooking, overshadowing and loss of privacy. Overdevelopment of site. There are no houses in Salisbury Road that have a substantial building in the back. They are either flat roofs or garden sheds. And something 13 metres high is just really overdevelopment of the site. Also bearing in mind that this poor house, sorry, I feel strong, has already been changed into 4 units over the 4 years. It was going to be 3 units and then another unit, and I'm sure he's got even more plans because the way he's laid his electricity and drainage, you can see that he's got more plans to use up every part of that garden. The pump, I can tell you about the pump, the sewage, that was laid there when he first did the house, worked on the house, because that was part of his plans back then. And he also laid electricity down there. So this is all planned, and it's bit by bit manoeuvring on the planning office and neighbours. And he says it will provide a valuable asset to the housing stock of the town. Say no more. I think it's unacceptable density and overdevelopment of the site. It's cramming, it's garden grabbing, you know, without any sensitivity to the neighbours. And also it's unsightly compartmentalisation of the garden. There's a little bit there for, you know, it's come and see it, please. And I've already had 2 councillors view it. Appearance design of it is just too big, it's too bulky, it's inappropriate. It's not a single story, it's a double story. he argues that a two-bedroom house, dwelling he uses terms, and it's a two-storey dwelling, and it's been dug out a little bit. Visual impact of the development, I think it will be a great loss to the area, and it will give strong negative visual impact for those that enjoy the area around. Increased noise, he's going to park 2 cars around the back as well, that's in the plans. He had planning permission for 2 at the front, which is now 4, which are work vans because he runs his business, his builder's business, from the site. And certainly pollution, noise, detrimental impact of the character of the neighbourhood and residency. This, we enjoy our properties. It's our human right that we enjoy our property, and that includes our land and our gardens. So I thank you for the opportunity to talk to you, and I very much hope that you give advice to Lewes Planning Council on this appropriate.
Thank you. Anybody else on this application?
Right, I'm Howard Johnson. I've written you a letter, my wife has as well, and also sent it to Lewes Council, living 2A, right near the driveway to this. And I really just want to simply say that I entirely support what the 2 people have said to you. It is a hideous overdevelopment, and it would be a ruination of an area. And indeed, the best way is to go and see this from the first story of number 4, because you can see that the area between the 2 roads, Salisbury and the other one, is clearly all gardens. All as far as you can see, it's gardens. And a house of this size would just be totally inappropriate.
Thank you. Over to the committee. Councillor Lowe first.
Yes, can I just make one comment? The lady said that a couple of councillors have been round, but people need to know that lots of us might have been round, and I certainly have, but I didn't necessarily go and knock on neighbours' doors.
Sorry.
But I think my comment is most definitely overdevelopment and most definitely out of character. I'm just concerned that we don't also use considerations that are not material planning considerations, but I would object on those 2 grounds at the very least.
So I find a seconder. Councillor Freeman, and I've got Councillor Elton next, and then Councillor.
I think I ran today to number 4 to have a look. I looked at it from the first floor. Keep it simple. Everything what you've heard so far, I would say, is reasonable and pretty accurate. So I wouldn't support it on the basis of what we've heard. Overdevelopment again.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Nathan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I support what's been said so far. I think it's out of keeping, overdevelopment, overlooking, loss of privacy, overshadowing. I despair really that the character of our town could be changed by all these developments of gardens, and we need to protect very carefully what we have and we hold dear. We've been told that development is very important and there's a housing crisis and all the rest of it, but working on the neighbourhood plan, there's plenty of sites in Seaford. Lewes allocated us 185, I think, for our contribution to the Lewes district allocation from government, and we're going to satisfy that quite easily without considering developments such as this. And in fact, if you look at developments outside the neighbourhood plan, and there are going to be quite a few of those as well, by 2030 there could be as many as 900 new houses in the Greater Seaford area and Bishopstone area. So I think we do have the opportunity to object to development such as this. Although there's pressure, I think we have to be very careful what we accept. And so I very strongly object to this development.
Okay. You've added loss of privacy
and overshadowing, loss of privacy, out of keeping, overdevelopment, etc.
A note of everything, thanks.
Councillor Lowe, you're quite happy to have those?
Yes, as long as
added.
we agree that they are material considerations.
I think they all relate to a prominent policy of the local plan, ST3, so we can say that, which covers residential amenity, so we can say specifically it's a serious contravention of that policy of the local plan, which sort of guides Lewes District Council on these sorts of applications. So we can mention that policy as well, I think.
ST3.
ST3.
Any other comments? So put it to the vote that you're objecting on overdevelopment, out of character, loss of privacy, overshadowing, yeah, and out of keeping to the policy of ST3. Alright. Can I have a show of hands on that, please?
1, 2, 3, 4. That's carried unanimously. Objection.
LW/17/0837 Rosecroft 42 Furl Road. Any members of the public like to comment on this application? Open to the committee. Councillor.
Just a letter of objection to mention from the neighbours, Simon and Francis Fletcher. I don't know whether it's been put on the website.
Yes.
It has, that's all right. If members are aware of it.
Councillor
Thank you very much. As far as I can see, this was approved in July by Lewes District Council, is that right?
Yes.
And what's happening here is a change to the roof line, and I'm very much in favour of pitch roofs, so I approve of this. That's all I have to say.
So you're supporting it?
I'm supporting it.
I'll second that because councillor Layton wants to.
Thank you. Any other comments on this application? So can I have a show of hands of supporting this application, please?
It's carried unanimously. LW/17/0867 land at the rear of Grosvenor Lodge, Wilmington Road. Any members of the public like to comment on this application? Open to the committee. Councillor Freeman.
Yeah, it looks like a completely out of character. It really is. They're just using up their garden to try and put a small house there. And all the rest of it is big houses, big gardens, and the design, it just doesn't fit in. I think it's just, out of place. I'd like to propose to object to it on the grounds of overdevelopment, I think, and also not in keeping with the character of the road.
Is that round a seconder?
No, well, I was going to make a comment now.
Yeah. Can I have a seconder on it first? Thank you. Right, Councillor Lowe and then Councillor Everton.
I mean, I do agree about the design. I think it's awful, but I do think it's. I do think that there is room there for a small house, and I can't see any reason not to have one there because it's not encroaching on anyone else. It just needs to be designed properly so that it's more in character with the other properties in the road, which is presumably quite possible if we've got a decent architect. So I wouldn't object, other than the out of character bit, which is rather awkward, really.
Councillor Elton.
I echo what was just said. I think there's enough space here, actually, potentially for a small building, potentially. Maybe a single story, I thought, would be more suitable. But the design, I totally don't support it. It's just totally out of keeping with the area. I thought it was terrible.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with everything that's been said about the design, it's hideous. But also, going back to what we were saying about development in gardens, I think this really fits in with what we were saying before. We do need to consider very carefully, just because there's space there, whether we should actually feel it's appropriate. I think it's could be out of keeping with the area, could set a precedent for other developments in gardens which aren't there at the moment. So personally, I object to it, both on the design and with regard to its overdevelopment for the area.
One thing the objectors mentioned, just to add a point, it's got very little garden area itself. so apart from the design, it's sort of quite,
There's a garage at the moment.
yeah, it's quite, uses up most of the plot. That's just, that's something that, there are about 10 objections on the website you've probably seen, and that's one of the objections is that there's just no garden.
Some developments that they have to be held if people live the area as well. That is another planning consideration now, they sort of think their favour, because it's moving all times, you know, so it's a catch-22.
Yeah, okay, right, I've got on the table, objecting, on the grounds of development, out of character, not keeping with the character of the area. Can't remember the last one.
Poor design.
Poor design.
Can we also add to the objection, councillor Latham's comment about being infill in the garden?
Set precedent, that's what I know.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've got-
I thought we should note that we would support perhaps another proposal, but because it's not, it's a bit of a contradiction here. Sorry, I'm talking to the chair. I thought that we raised the point that it wasn't actually against them, that the design was more the thing that we recognised that there shouldn't be a complete objection, it should be more of a note rather than a vote on this application.
There's been a proposal seconder. If Councillor Lower or anybody that, or Councillor Elton wants to propose an amendment to that, to, if you like, tone down the objection to just poor design, then obviously it's open to propose that to the chairman.
It's more the design that's upset the committee rather than, and it's the point of the fact that the issue of that garden defence rightly raised. However, we weren't against, not saying it's not suitable in areas of development.
Well, that can be an amendment, so if Councillor Lowe wants to move that.
Councillor?
No, I'd rather the objections stood and I would vote according to.
What I just said, the overdevelopment.
I'd rather we just took a vote on that because it's been proposed and seconded, hasn't it? Yeah.
Okay, you don't want an amendment, that's what they're saying.
No, I'll leave it.
Okay.
I could put one forward for potentially a single story. maybe.
Does that be in detail?
No, I think it's best to leave
Yeah,
it.
you can't really revise the plan, you've got to, obviously, put your views on as they stand, but I mean, there are obviously 2 points of view, that it's unsuitable for any development, or it's just a poor design, so, but as I say, if you want to take a vote on the one that's already been proposed and seconded, and see if that obviously is carried, then that's the decision, if it's not, then you can seek other views, yeah.
Okay, so is everybody clear on that? Okay, so can I have a show of hands, please, on objecting on out of character, road development, and not in keeping with the character of the road?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 in favour of objection on those grounds.
Those against?
That's carried by 5 votes to 3, so there's an objection on those grounds. And abstention.
Okay, that's carried. LW stroke 17 stroke 0870 3 Barons Close. Any members of the public like to comment on this application? It's open to the committee. Councillor Nathan?
As I understand it, 2 previous applications have been declined, refused for this proposal. And the reason given was undesirable and contrary to original design of the estate, and also a breach of restrictive covenants. So there are a number of existing issues which led to those objections, which I don't think have been addressed in this application. And therefore, I would object to it on those grounds.
Is that right, a seconder? Councillor Freeman? Anybody else like to comment on this application? Councillor?
I need to say that it is a large plot of land and it's not a very large extension, so purely residential use, I wouldn't object.
I'll speak. My only worry on this application is that it could turn into an annex, and if it is considered to be, you know, past the different book.
Yes, I mean, it's got the potential to be used as a separate unit of accommodation, given that it's quite a large extension. But in these circumstances, if the local authority had the same concern, that Lewis had the same concern, but nevertheless accepted it, that as far as its size and the way and its appearance is concerned, it was in character. It could put a condition on there, or even a Section 106 agreement restricting its use to a single private dwelling and preventing any sort of split, any subdivision to two dwellings, if that was a concern.
Just come back on that. I agree it's a large plot. And I think, if I remember rightly, I haven't got it with me, but if I remember rightly, one of the objections from the previous application was to do with a business being conducted from the property. And I think that needs looking into. Well, it's not really a planning consideration, I suppose. I don't know, is it?
Well, if there was evidence that there was a business being run there, then obviously that would be a change of use. You can run a business from your property, tens of thousands of people do. It's a question of it's not the principle, it's a question of whether that, for example, causes additional traffic or somehow noise and disturbance. But most businesses run from properties are run completely innocuously, and the neighbours aren't even aware of it.
I think the word that was used was trade, which is
well, it's comings and goings, additional traffic, especially in a close like this, that would obviously probably be unacceptable. So it depends what type of business it is. It's not, there's nothing wrong with it in principle.
I'm just worried that we started speculating about what might happen in the future, and that's not what we're seeing involved in. We're looking at what's in front of us.
Thank you. So we've got an objection of,
It's out of character, overdevelopment and out of character with the area, presumably.
contrary to the original.
Contrary to the original layout of the estate.
That was the reason Lewis gave previously for the objection. I don't see anything to change.
okay, thank you. And that's second by Councillor Freeman. Can I have show of hands, please?
1, 2, 3, 4 in favour of objection.
And those against?
1, 2, 3, 4 against.
Yes.
Right, fine. So on the Chair's casting vote, the objection was lodged on the grounds of Councillor Latham outlined. Thank you.
LW stroke 17 stroke 0 888 6 Buckland Road. Any members of the public like to comment on this application? Over to the committee. Councillor Freeman.
It's perfectly fine. It's not anniversary.
Yeah. Is that fine to second? And anybody else want to speak on it? And I have show of hands of supporting the application.
That's carried. Thank you.
Planning application is weekend in 27th of October. LW stroke 17 stroke 0836 15 Robert Road. Any members of the public like to comment on this application? Anybody want to speak on this one? It is, we have had it before and we did note, it was pointed out by our planning officer, that the description had been revised and we noted it at the time. So basically we have got the same again.
Why did it come back?
This is the third time it's appeared on the weekly list, so it gets put on the agenda. I assume that there will be revised plans appearing on the website, but there hasn't been anything appearing on the website. So, as we supported the previous set of plans, we've got no option but to carry on with that support. As I say, I hope that a new plan on the website would make it clear why it's come back to us, but it's a bit of a mystery.
Okay, so, councillor
Do we have to
Hampton.
support, do we have to have a vote on it? Because it seems unclear. Can we not?
Well, we should really, I mean, it was put on the agenda because it appeared on the weekly list, and I was awaiting something, and perhaps I should have queried it with Lewis, but I was just waiting for something to appear, because that's normally what you'd expect to happen, where an application is modified halfway through the 8-week period, or it was amended or added to. In this case, there's only been an amended description of the development, and as I say, everything on the website is the same as it appeared when it first went on there in September. So we've supported it in the past. It only went on the agenda because we anticipated receiving a set of modified or amended plans. That hasn't happened. So as on the evidence that's on the website is exactly the same as it was when we supported the application last time. So
We say we just support it based on what
Yeah.
the information we've seen.
Yeah, that's
And if
right.
there's anything
We
contrary to that, we
you
wouldn't
could,
necessarily
if you wish,
support it.
say, query why it's come back
Yeah.
to us the third time, when there appears to be no reason, nothing new to consider. So there's no harm in putting that in our response to sort of let Lewis know that we were totally confused as to why it would come back to us. But as I say, it's something perhaps I should have taken up with the officer concerned, but
I can see that we continue to support the application, the query.
yeah, if that's okay with members.
I'll propose that.
Okay, thank you, councillor Brewer. Find a second, councillor Latham. Large show of hands, please.
That's Karen, thank you.
LW stroke 17 stroke 0868 20 High Street. Any members of the public like to comment on this application? Open to the committee.
Support, Madam Chairman.
Okay. Is that fine, seconder?
Can I comment first? I take it this is the Regency restaurant. Is it going to continue as a restaurant or?
That is not our concern.
Because I couldn't work out from the plans. I mean, the kitchen was a kitchen for restaurant with an amount of storage, fridges and freezers and that. But there's been nothing about whether it's going to continue being a restaurant or not. A bit puzzling.
I mean, if it was going to be changed for another use, then there'll be an application in for that. But we've just got to sort of judge it from what we see.
Okay, I support Councillor Latham.
Councillor Lowe, did you?
No, I was just going to second it, that was all.
I'd like to say that there's a lack of information on because they're going to do external work and we don't know what the windows are going to be like, the doors are going to be, if it's going to be like for like.
I support the plans are quite poor quality as well. It's a shame it's not like a minimum standard really, but there's no, it's a shame. It's quite hard to read. And there you go.
Okay, so got supporting the application.
Support the application in principle, but some concern is expressed about the lack of detail. Yeah, if members are happy with that.
Okay, so can I have show of hands of supporting this application?
Thank you.
And those against? Okay. LW stroke 17 stroke 0894 34 Chinkton Gardens. Any members of the public like to comment on this application? Open to the committee. Councillor Elton.
Seems pretty straightforward to me. I'll support it.
Is that right, second? Thank you, councillor Foreman. And can I have a show of hands?
That's
Unanimous.
unanimous, thank you.
Planning applications weekend in the 3rd of November. LW stroke 17 stroke 0572 on Lions Place. Any members of the public like to comment on this application? Open to the committee. Councillor Latham.
Looking at this property, at the moment it's in balance. There are 4 properties, all and it's well balanced, okay? And this extension to one side will just upset that balance. It's to one side in the garden, basically. There's plenty of room for it, but looking at the property, it will upset the balance. And so I felt it was inappropriate on those grounds, because it would spoil the look in the neighbourhood. And it'll probably also set precedent for similar extensions as well. It's a very good looking 4 properties in a row, basically, very, very nice looking. And I think it would spoil it, so I'd reject it.
Is that fine, second? Councillor Overton.
I was going to comment.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. Sort of disagree for a change, actually. With, I thought it's quite sensible. I thought, and the unbalance, as it were, on one side wasn't too bad. I didn't think it went up too high and not that noticeable. So I would support it. But
Right, okay, we've got on the table an objection by Councillor Latham. Does that find a seconder? Councillor Freeman. Councillor Foreman.
Townley is a very popular name, and it's very difficult to determine who it is, so I'm going to abstain from this.
Any other comments? So can I have a show of hands of objecting to this application?
1, 2.
Those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's lost. So we need a.
So, Councillor Elton, would you like to?
I would propose to support it. I think it's a sensible design. And,
Does that find a seconder? Councillor Holmes?
Just quickly, so
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. Yes, I mean, it's always cool. I thought it's always a little bit interesting anyway, and that's why I thought this particular one. Personally, my mind notes was I would have liked something a little bit more lower level, but it hasn't, so that's where we are. But I think on principle, I couldn't say from object on this one. So.
Okay. Are you second?
Yeah, I'll second this one.
Okay, thank you. So can I have a show of hands of supporting this application?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and support.
And those against?
Carried 6-2, so we resolve to support it.
LW stroke 17 stroke 0896 26 Windover Road. Any members of the public like to comment on this application?
Yes, please. Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Tina Stark. I'm a resident of 24 Hindover Road, so obviously I'm next door to this property. I would like to propose the planning application for 26 Hindover Road, and I have submitted to you and Lewes District Council a full list of my reasons, both environmentally and personally. Similar plans to this were objected in 1988 and again by Seaford Town Council last year. I believe that nothing has changed in the interim that would warrant another dwelling in an already overcrowded area. Do you wish me to go through all of my bits, or have you actually got them in front of you? Because I have sent them in. I did email as well.
I would have reported the letter, which I have here, if you hadn't been
Right,
here.
so do you wish me to go
Yeah,
through
I mean,
some of it?
yeah, I've noticed there's 18 points. You can just.
I'll try and read through them quickly. Now, it's an eyesore already, unfortunately, but it's one of those things. It's been built since 1958. We have heard that there's a drop curb licence that's been agreed for the front of the property, which is supposed to alleviate some of the parking problem. The owners of 26 Hindover Road currently have 3 vehicles, so one parking space will not solve that problem. They have 1 small car, 1 multi-person car and a camper van, so you definitely haven't got space on the front due to the positioning of a lamppost to actually put 2 cars on a drive. The notice for planning application only went up in the last 2 days, but we had paperwork a week, or in fact 2 weeks ago, so it's been very late going up. People can't see it because it's on the garage door, and they park their car in front of it, so no one, neighbourhood-wise, will see this planning notice. And I believe that it's not been a long enough notice for people to actually raise any concerns. One of the pictures on the plans shows a car parked in a space that is beyond the boundary of the house's or the property boundaries. It also shows a very neat piece of garden next to the car. I believe that this gives a false impression that the garden area is part of the house. In fact, it is the rear entrance to number 28 Hindover Road, and it is always full of broken up panel fences and waste timber. So, which is possibly an environmental issue that maybe we should have raised as well. As I say, it was refused in 1988, and it was refused because of an overdevelopment and that it shouldn't be changed into a dwelling. The plan's measurements do not tally with the area shown, therefore the supposed allocated parking space is insufficient unless you've got a smart car, unless there's been an application to purchase the land. The Hindover Crescent is actually, I believe, classed as an unadopted highway for the passing and repassing of cars. It's feasible that none of us should be parked out there at all, but we do park within boundaries, and this would not. The boundary is 2.8 metres at the widest and 1.8 metres at the narrowest, so therefore insufficient for any car. Going on to the bits that Lewes District Council say you can object against, as it were, contextual significance. The building is out of keeping with the area now, and to extend it would make it more so, or to change it would make it more so. It's already a curiosity, because people wonder what it's doing there, and how it ever got planning permission in the first place. It's surrounded by terraced and semi-detached houses. Would there be an effect on the property prices if they put this small dwelling in there? Drainage, I query whether there's sufficient drainage to support the much higher use. At present, there's only a small toilet and a sink. So, as a one-bedroom property, there would be need, obviously, for a bath, shower, kitchen sink, washing machine, dishwasher, all the other mod cons that people have these days. Will the new proposed soakaway on the rear of the building adjacent to boundary line path be sufficient, and to avoid any damage to, obviously, the fences and boundaries that are already there? Highways hazards, access road, it is a track, it is an unmade road. It gets very bumpy and lumpy at times, and grit goes everywhere. So if you're going to put construction traffic in there and materials, to those who live in the Crescent, they would not have access to their houses and parking. Those that do obviously have parking availability there. There's inadequate access. The house fronts onto, as I say, an unadopted highway. The rough track is already overloaded with cars. They are caused by an overflow from nearby streets of Hindover Road and Sutton Drove. We get all sorts parked in there. The allocation on the plans, as I said before, is insufficient to park a reasonable sized car unless they go beyond their property boundary. It is probable that at least 2 cars would be needing spaces. A one-bedroom house presumably would be a young couple perhaps, and most people have a car to get to work, so it could be 2 cars. Noise and disturbance, the noise and dust while under construction, as it is very close to neighbouring properties. Obstruction to road residents as no alternative access to their homes. Does the proposal allow for noise levels in the insulation of the property? Not sustainable, the property is on the boundary line on the north elevation. If the property needs regular maintenance, which I think it's actually wooden faced now, if it needs maintenance to keep its appearance, they would have to have a permanent agreement with number 28. The building has large cracks in its sides, of which I did send photographs in, and it's only recently been, I would have said, plugged by a non-professional. If it's a professional, then I'm sorry, they should be sacked. I wonder is the building actually safe to change into a dwelling, and would it be suitable for mortgage? It is out of character, as I say already now, but it is a brick building at least. If it's something else, it will stand out even more. The building is a square block, and it will be seen from many homes nearby. outside of the planning boundary, as I've already stated, because it doesn't match up, and some of the side elevation, northeast and southwest, none of that matches up with the actual property boundaries. Overdevelopment, it is overcrowded with parking, as I've already stated, and there are no grounds around the building to afford any sort of privacy for the owner. I've already stated it's an overbearing construction. Overlooking a loss of privacy, it does overlook established gardens and also in close proximity to bedroom windows of nearby houses. Parking issues, I've already covered. Smell and fumes, will there be sufficient ventilation for the building? If heating, hot water supply to be installed, where will the flue be placed to ensure no adverse effects on neighbouring properties? On a personal level, the building is very close to our hobby workshop, which we did have planning permission for. We are mindful of the noise that we make and are thoughtful, hopefully, to our neighbours. We don't get any complaints, so hopefully we're all right. I think that's a fact that any potential dweller in that house would like to be made aware of, that there is a hobby workshop underneath their bedroom window. Excuse me, when purchasing, we've established our garden and we have nice seating areas with what we call quiet areas. This will be overlooked by this property. When purchasing our house 20 years ago, we were assured that the building at the bottom of our next door neighbour's garden could not ever be used as a dwelling. This obviously had an impact on whether we bought the property in the first place. There is also a very strange standing agreement that a fee is payable to us for loss of light. We have no idea why. It was on the original plans when it was asked to build as a sunroom. I don't know how it came about, but 24 Hindover Road is due, I think it's something like £1 a year. Some really silly amount for loss of light. So this, it's just exasperating. We've never obviously followed that one up, and we don't intend to. We are lucky enough to have a long garden, as do several others in the Crescent. So if permission was granted for this, as Councillor Latham has said several times before this evening, what's to stop us all applying? We can take down our workshops. We don't need planning permission to take them down, but we could then apply for planning permission to build houses, and you've got another street. Some years ago, our neighbours had someone living in this sun lounge. We complained then, as we did not think it was an environmentally friendly habitat. We would understand if friends are visiting or a friend has fallen on hard times, needs temporary assistance. But at one time, there were 2 adults and 4 children living in one room with only a small sink and a toilet. They did not enter the main house to our knowledge, and according to a planning officer I spoke to at the time, this was fine and did not conflict any planning regulations. But if there had been a written contract to say they were not allowed to use the main house, then that would have contravened those living arrangements. But I would have said that having 4 people living in one room was contrary to any standing. It's just not a nice way to live. Over the past few years, we have also spoken to our neighbours there about the maintenance of their house. They do not upkeep it. There has been little response so far, and we continue to actually pursue this because we have got damp caused by not, rendering being out of date and what have you. So, thank you. I'm sorry it was so long, but I did send photographs as well, and hopefully that makes it all nice and clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to comment on this application? Over to the committee. Councillor Lowe.
I'm just mindful that we must stick to material planning considerations, and obviously you've listed an awful lot of complaints there as much as anything, which we can't really take into consideration. I mean, it is a dreadful building that is there now, in my opinion. And when I first looked at it, I thought, well, actually, what was proposed would be better, but it most definitely is overdevelopment, and so I would object on those grounds. Basic.
So find a seconder. Councillor
Yes, thank you. I entirely agree with Councillor Lowe. I thought on first examination of the plans, I thought yes, this is a great improvement. But then, having had a good look around the area, on several occasions, actually, it's a previous application as well as for this one. It's clearly that it's overdevelopment, and as we've said before tonight, set a precedent, and I think it would be a disaster for the area, so I'm opposed to it.
Quite like it, isn't it? The flat roof, it's not good because there is access there from I know the present. I would actually support it to do that. That's my gut feeling.
Okay, so we've got proposal that we object to overdevelopment. Is that enough?
Well, I mean, moving on from that, presuming it's detrimental to the neighbourhood, out of character, and would make it more difficult to resist similar applications in the future, which would be even more detrimental to the area. Yeah, well,
it's very hard to actually get to this, and the issues of overlooking and that can be changed with windows.
You can't put it in black and white, but as I said, the usual way of expressing any concern about precedent, because precedent doesn't apply in the same black and white terms, but it would, as I say, the usual wording is make it more difficult to resist similar applications, which cumulatively would be detrimental to the area. So, as I say, it's not exactly saying it would be a precedent, but just sort of realistically saying that it would possibly lead to further applications like it.
Okay, you're all right
Yes,
with that,
that's fine,
councillor?
yes.
Okay. So can I have a show of hands of objecting to this application?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 objections.
And those votes?
1. That's objections carried by 7 votes to 1.
Okay. LW stroke 17 stroke 0914 26 Fairways Road. Any members of the public like to comment on this application? Can open to the committee. Councillor Young?
Yeah, I went to have a look at this. I'm always a bit disconcerted when I go to look at a property to find that it's already got pallets of bricks in the front garden ready to go. I did think this one was out of keeping because they were very consistent row of quite nice single-storey bungalows, and they're all, you know, they do look very good in their setting there. So I thought I would object that it was out of keeping. I thought it was quite a harmonious close to the properties there. So I thought it was out of keeping, basically, in overdevelopment.
Is that one the seconder? Do you want to, Councillor Freeman? Any other comments?
Yeah, I was contacted.
Councillor Freeman? Foreman, sorry.
I was contacted by the neighbour, referred to Jeff. He had concerns about the planning in great detail. And he actually was satisfied with that, so I'd like to support the application.
Okay. I've got on the table that objecting with out of keeping and overdevelopment. So can I have a show of hands of objecting on those grounds?
4 in favour of objection.
Those against? And those abstaining?
4 abstentions. Yeah, objections carried by 4 votes to 1.
Like you said, before we move on to the next thing, which is obviously quite different, could we also make a comment to LDC that there's been a number of times as we mentioned this evening that planning notices are not up and neighbours haven't had letters. I think that's really important.
Before we go to the next item, agenda item, is there any members of the public would like to leave at this point?
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You got loose, eh? Sorry? You got loose.
I don't know.
This one.
Yeah,
I understand the reasons the process
yeah.
You don't know anybody who does.
Yeah, I think that was most of the road, isn't it? That was most of that first impression, isn't it? With him, look, the first, yeah, look at everything else, yeah, we'd tidy up, and that's, yeah.
I must admit, I found first look,
Yeah, I did.
But when you think of it's where it is, and all of it,
She made a good case about going around
and it's, you
Meetings
know,
like this, they
it's,
tell us,
everywhere.
if there is a problem with the sewage and
There's a
things.
question about the road there, isn't
Yeah,
there?
but
Yeah,
there's
this
no
is the same thing,
we've got
2,700 signatures on the front.
anyway.
It's a silk through.
It's how adopted
I'm
road.
surprised it doesn't go through it, really, because there's no
I think it's
reason
a
why it
disaster
should.
really when.
That parking lot, that's a big way.
No, parking,
town.
the address is behind our road, it's behind our Crescent, and there is parking outside the access point. And the, what they've proposed to do to it is make it green.
is that
This
there?
has to be the next end of street.
Yeah, possibly, I
The
don't know.
same principle.
Yeah, but there's no law for enabling to stop a person and putting up. It's not acceptable.
So on this one, I've approved it.
Needs to start a social.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
On the beach.
I think it's probably a road
And
now.
I've certainly approved the rest of it, that bit, I did it.
Have a look at
And we
it.
supported, we supported that one of the whole building, so that's, that covered the whole living space, wouldn't it, with a different,
It's the next one I bought, I think.
oh, that's, yeah, that one.
And that's.
Yeah, and that's.
I meant that one down the corner, that one, yeah, the other way, that, oh, but on one,
Oh, yes,
yeah, you know,
yes,
that was
yeah,
slightly
Where is
different.
it?
There's a lot of space at the back.
Yeah.
Right,
okay.
It's Fred Jeff as well.
Because
Yeah,
it's this
yeah.
road,
Huge.
there's a bridge.
But,
That's already
the second,
That's it,
I
right?
think quite a small pond, won't it, they come up.
Because they're actually building.
It's not going to be an awful.
That's
There's not going to be much of a frontage, are there? It's always their backyard, isn't it? There's a place of garden, there's not what would you really go from there, would it? It'd be something.
I mean,
It takes you down to the west side of the,
There's 2 houses with no back gardens.
the area that's developed by EU lottery money.
You
About
look
the
at,
double the
This
width.
area here.
well, you look up one of those places, don't you? So you use one of those, you know, they've got the stick bit and it goes round, and some of them look at the
Well,
same,
here, the
and
A21.
they can be quite close to the one going down, some of them quite.
That's a
But
nightmare.
there's 2 houses at the end.
But I mean, we were, when the thinking about the incinerator,
Big drive,
we were lying at risk then.
yeah.
There's 2 houses.
And we were so much against it, but it's just went out there.
Because they basically, that's what they're
The
corner, lines, they've got, it literally,
Oh, yeah.
The corner one's got
All the rest of it
the
is
side.
It's an eyesore.
The
About this, Saturday Beach.
it's only
is that just because of how the development happened when they started
But
standing
the
it on?
agency can't go ahead at all, this bit here.
I thought that
No,
that's
this bit here.
supplementary information about
the squeeze to me.
suggesting
I
that
don't think it
the
would be
West
fast
Quay
enough.
isn't functional, and therefore they have to have.
But that's right, yeah, but that other boundary at the time, they squeezed it in.
Is that the North Quay?
Before it started going round
Yes.
the next bit.
There was an implication that it was non-functional, and
I know,
therefore
I
they
don't
were
know why.
forced to use further south.
North Quay was developed,
Yeah.
You know,
That's
that's
exactly
what
right.
it was. It was really functional.
That's
I
why I
thought
asked,
for the
you know,
reason.
if they wanted
You might have been
saying,
you might have been
yeah, and also they wanted to comment, they had to comment.
Yeah, I
So-
think
It was all three of us on the way out.
You've got to have a website.
Yeah, sorry,
Exercise
there was,
tonight, yeah.
the applicants from Fairways Close were there, but they missed the chance to speak, but they just wanted to, they had a bit of a query, but, you know, I think, so sorry, it was a bit of a delay. The last,
Oh, I
Last
didn't
one.
know speak.
well, I don't know, they just missed the opportunity, they didn't know, they sort of missed the boat, and they were a bit slow in coming forward, but, you know. Right. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, terrible with the stairs now.
What a deep figure, Jeffrey did.
Okay, agenda item 5. To inform the committee of the proposals for major development, New Haven Harbour. It's actually got a Lewis District application number now, which was on the planning application list this week, but obviously it came under New Haven, so, which is more accessible than the Sussex County Council website.
Yes.
Yes.
We reported it back in August after the public exhibition, and we're anticipating this application, obviously. At the time of the public exhibition, we weren't formally notified as a town council, so we made the point to East Sussex County Council that when the formal application was submitted, we would expect to be notified formally, and they accepted that back in August when we first discussed it, but we weren't formally notified of this application, which was a bit disappointing. Although it was on the website had been on the website 2 or 3 weeks, consultation period didn't formally start until last Friday. I was hoping that when the consultation period started that we would be formally notified, but we weren't. Obviously we were aware of it through this the objector who sent us this material that I've circulated. But it is a bit disappointing that we weren't notified, because obviously, although it's a New Haven matter, Seaford has got a stake in this matter. It has a wide impact on the area. So, just to make that point first, and secondly, as the consultation period, as it's such a major application, runs for 6 weeks to the 22nd of December, I thought that perhaps if we had the main discussion on the 7th of December, then we would have a better chance of seeing the objections, maybe some responses from other authorities like the South Downs Authority who have been notified, so that we would have more information if we consider it on the 7th of December rather than now, and we'd still be able to get our responses in by the 22nd. So, but obviously it's up to members whether they accept that or not. We have got a very detailed objection here with an additional submission from Mr. King, which to me seems to cover most of the relevant points, or the concerns, but as I say, it is a major matter, there's a lot of documentation to go through, so there's no harm, as I see it, in leaving it another 3 weeks for members to talk to other residents about it, see what other objections come in, and to go through the documentation on the website. So, but as I say, it's entirely up to members whether they do that or not.
How does the committee feel about it? Would you like more time
I
to?
would like to propose that we are given that
There is
time.
an awful lot
Yeah.
of
There's a
reading.
huge amount to look at.
Because I guess get clarification, we can't object on the principle of course development now, because it's where the working port's got permission anyway of sorts, isn't it, in that area. It's just what's there, isn't it?
Well, yeah, a big factor in support of their application, which they emphasise, is the fact that there's already, the Port Authority already have permission to put buildings there, yes. So that has to be taken into account, but I mean, there's obviously no guarantee that consent will be implemented, and it obviously it's not implemented at the moment, but it has to be taken into account. It sort of takes the edge off the objection slightly, but it may be that the Port Authority could let that application lapse. I don't know the ins and outs of it.
I think I've had Councillor Nick Freeman next.
Yes, just actually second Councillor Latham's proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Lathan.
Thank you. Following on from what Cliff has said, they have permission to develop that area, but do they have permission to, which part of that area do they have permission to develop? Because stage 4 here, which is the additional part leading down to the beach, on the shoreline almost, which would be very visible from Seaford, is something new. I mean, it's not actually taking over the Rampion area. Already there, the number of stage 1, 2 and 3 are occupied by Rampion, and I know you've been down there, but it's a mess. And I should think development there is going to proceed one way or another. But stage 4 is entirely new. And it's a large area, and we'd see it from certainly.
Definitely, I think a higher building than any that can go in there, because it's a block making block.
Yes, that's right. So I don't know what, I haven't looked at the details yet, but presumably it's several stories high.
Yeah, I mean that's a good reason for going through the details, the photo montages and things like that.
Well, the bits I did sort of note, the aggregate things are 11.2 metres high, and with cement silos, that's the tower bit, it's 18.5 metres high.
That's tall.
Yeah. Do you know what
would they be visible from Seaford?
Yeah. Especially where I live. So I will probably have a bit of an interest on this when we actually have so I wouldn't, we'll step back on it, but yes, it will be very, very prominent from like New Bishopstone Estate and Porth Estate and Bill Rise, I suppose, as well.
And there's the South Downs Authority, obviously, with tide mills being so close and tide mills being within the boundaries of the National Park. So it'll be interesting to see what they say about it.
Of course, then you've got Mockery Hill, which is also South Downs National Park, which will look down.
I mean, it's visible from Crystal Forest and around sort of Gales Farm, the high ground there, you can see right across the boat. So, as I say, it needs to be studied in detail.
I mean, the other thing is, how much dust and noise do these things cause?
The most
I'm thinking of the
polluting
residents.
industry. It is the most polluting industry, allegedly. Concrete.
Yeah, they have a lot of trouble dealing with the dust. I mean, they have measures for sort of damping things down and things, but it never completely eradicates the problem.
Sorry,
Just sort of, as I'm reasonably new to the town, can any other councillors tell me, or does anyone know, has there been any other applications on that area before which have been sort of rejected? Is it like a wasteland? Because it's kind of like there's nothing there, is there? It'd be good to have something there.
Any other application would have gone to New Haven, so would not be passed to Seaford Town Council.
I think it's more what line of business it is. Is this aggregate which causes...
I was just kind of curious, because if this one gets rejected, is there any other opportunities coming up? Is there anyone queuing up to go there, or is it like, because it's nice to have some business in New Haven, isn't it?
With great respect, plan
I'm just interested.
I think if we bring the meeting to a close, Chair, and then
Councillor Hunman.
Just a couple of things. Obviously, anything like that, the full taxes vote is going to be open, the whole lot. In fact, otherwise I'd say definitely a no-no. That was my own view. I think what the National Park people say is will be fairly paramount. Their own view as the statutory and statutory consultees. They've obviously been, there has been the major supermarket, the Asda housing development's been in that area as well, and not quite so far down, even though Asda did sort of back away. But there's still various planning applications applicable even now on the various parts of which go off basically the Port Access Road. Their own neighbourhood plan, it's excluded. The port is excluded from the New Haven neighbourhood plan anyway. All that area, it's a self-contained area if you like. They don't, because it's got You wouldn't be able to overturn that, would you? It wouldn't be part of the neighbourhood plan, really, what
No.
goes on down there. So it's noted, it's not waiting and looking at it, so it's out. Yeah, there's just a few things I just wanted to explain.
Okay, so if there's no other, Councillor Freeman.
I'd just like to respond to Councillor Towson's query. The Newham Port Authority had previously allocated the land of blocks 1, 2 and 3 for high-tech industry and housing. And that's now been thrown out the water, basically.
Was there any interest in that? I'm just curious.
I can't see.
No. Yeah.
Okay, if there's no other questions, so can I have a proposal that we have this before us on our next planning highways meeting? Councillor Freeman,
From Councillor Latham, we've done that, Chair.
We did that.
seconded by Councillor Freeman. And can I show hands, please?
That's agreed, thank you.
You might be interested to know, if you want to make a note, the application number is LW/17/0940. DC one.
0940.
Slowly, it's all quite.
LW/17/0940.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just see.
Will they, I mean, if there's letters, everything that comes in about that application, will it automatically go on the East Sussex and the Lewis? Yeah, they'll be identical right the way through. Yeah.
Right, agenda item 6, to note the contents of the report.
11 Blatchington Road was recommended for refusal at the last Lewis Planning Applications Committee, but that was approved against officer recommendation in accordance with our support.
Any questions? Councillor?
I'm just on the 39A Clement Road. I was surprised by that one.
Yeah,
Because
that was.
And Marine Crescent,
Yeah, that was the one that went against our objection.
Okay, so, proposal? Thank you, Councillor Lewis, seconded, Councillor Shines of noting the report. Thank you. Thank you for coming.